Good afternoon, people, all the people in the nation. At the first instance, allow me to recognize that we have gathered here because of the power of God, because it's very difficult actually to live in Zambia now. You say that you are in prison or you have died of hunger. And we need to appreciate that God, who is omnipresent and omnipotent, has allowed us to gather in this manner to communicate to the nation. I also have to put in context that the communication we are going to do here is on behalf of and for PF as well as Tonse. As you know that we belong to both groups. We have the chairman for the national chairman for parliamentary affairs. We also have a member of the leader of our council in the Tonse. We also have the member of parliament, my fellow member of parliament for our area where the chief Kapale is, Kwakazembe, and myself to address the nation on different matters. We need to realize that there are different matters that we are going to speak to. There be the chief's meeting with the president, also the issue of the presidential speech. We know that we are not exhaustive in parliament, and there are certain matters that are still hanging. I do take recognizance that one of the people that we depend on who would have debated that speech credibly, because we only carry a credible voice, is Honorable Kafwaya, who is serving his suspension, and we are in solidarity with you. I know that Honorable Mundubile did debate, though we could see that he had a lot of energy, which was curtailed because of the limitation of time and the way Parliament is set. So given that, we'll take also into that consideration. But by and large, we also reflect on an issue of the national budget, which is going to be represented tomorrow. As we know that we are supposed to give alternative voice. We have a manifesto we always follow as a campus, which is the manifesto for 2021-2026 as PF. That is giving us a guidance because we believe that that particular document has not expired in terms of ideas. And that being the case, we also reflect on alternative policies and what we would like to see and our expectations to the nation. So given that background, I would like to ask Honorable Mutoto Kafwaya to set the ball rolling as we continue with the presser. And I think I ask for your attention that we absorb the different issues. And as I said, the Honorable Mutoto Kafwaya, I'm trying to encourage you that you can also speak to matters that you have spoken to. Have you been allowed the opportunity and the platform to talk about the president's speech? The ball is in your hands, sir.
Thank you so much, Honorable Fuve. It's a great opportunity for me to make a contribution on this press briefing. If you may allow me to recognize Honorable Brian Mundubile, Member of Parliament for Mporokoso Central, and also Chief for Parliamentary Affairs for the Tonse membership. Let me also recognize my honorable colleague, Honorable Kabasoka Pampi, MP in our lovely Luapula province. And as I do, I also recognize the media. Honorable Fuve, I think you set the ball rolling so well by indicating the areas of interest today. Certainly, I'll be spelling out my expectations for the budget, which I believe will be delivered tomorrow by the Minister of Finance. But before I do that, let me just offer my reflection on the meeting that the President had with the chiefs. I observed that the President lectured the chiefs on patriotism. I thought that was totally inappropriate. I think that the president has no right whatsoever to start lecturing chiefs on patriotism. I think the chiefdoms existed long before Zambia existed, and therefore I feel the president should give maximum respect to our chiefs. The chiefs are not custodians of political slogans. They are custodians of our traditions and our values, which are diverse. Chiefs in various localities do not carry the same traditions. And so it's virtually difficult, as I see it, for anyone to bring chiefs together and begin to lecture them on any subject, and in this case on patriotism. I also found it concerning for the president to tell the chiefs that when I say this, you should say this. I think that shouldn't happen. Maybe, as we say, the handlers of the president should improve. They should attempt to do their very best to ensure that each time they allow the president to speak, the president is actually appropriate. On one platform, I suggested that the president needs to be scientific when he speaks to issues. But coming to my expectations for the budget tomorrow, I want to say that I have two expectations. First, I think that UPND's budget tomorrow will be an appeasement budget. Secondly, I am concerned, I'm worried that UPND is going to hit 1 trillion kwacha in 5 years. When they announce their budget tomorrow, the total budget that UPND will have spent in these 5 years will hit 1 trillion kwacha. This has never happened. Let me tell you, PF in 5 years prior to 2021 spent only 507 billion kwacha. As a matter of fact, the entire stay of PF in office, they failed to hit 1 trillion kwacha. The entire 10 years, they could not hit 1 trillion. But UPNG is going to hit 1 trillion in 5 years. But here is the problem. The problem is that Dr. Msokotwane will never explain how the 1 trillion has been spent. The only thing Dr. Msokotwane will be able to explain is CDF. Now, the entire 5 years, CDF will not even reach 30 billion kwacha. So, this is the immorality in the UPND government. Because for them, they focus on small things because they decorate small things to mislead the Zambian people so that Zambian people think that they are working and yet they are not doing anything. Tell me, any Zambian out there, tell me how 1 trillion can be reduced to less than 30 billion kwacha. This is what we are going to see. So I am very, very sorry. I think that it is embarrassing for any ethical person, any person who thinks normally. It's embarrassing for them to put behind a number, from the 1 trillion, just remove 30 billion. And I'm saying so because CDF, even though it will be increased, it will not, its cumulative figure for 5 years will not reach 30 billion. It will be less than 30 billion. So tell me how, and after Dr. Msokotwane speaks tomorrow, we will come out with the accurate figures. I'm just approximating, but I can tell you for no imagination that forget about 30 billion for CDF, it won't reach. However, this is what they will concentrate on. And in fact, a week or so ago, they were distributing some Land Cruisers. Do you know why they timed it in this fashion? They want this CDF story to continue into the budgeting. But for UPND to provide electricity for 4 years, only to come and start providing it 9 months before elections. And they have started with shanty compounds. And I know that after a lot of talk, perhaps they will even be able to provide to the whole nation this electricity. Why should Zambian people only enjoy for 9 months after voting in a government that is going to stay for 5 years? These are the questions that those who receive social cash transfer should ask. Why should these transfers be enhanced for only 9 months? You know, why should UPND introduce and enhance cash for work? What value is cash for work going to give the Zambian people in terms of job creation? Okay, because these are issues that only affect cadres of UPND. So instead of, you know, presenting an appeasement budget, I would have expected Dr. Msokotwani, on behalf of the UPND government, to introduce a productive budget, a budget that is going to stimulate productivity, so that you make promise for jobs and, jobs and business opportunities real for the Zambian people. But here we are. We are dealing with a propaganda government, which propaganda government has no capacity to think in terms of how to improve the welfare of people on a sustainable basis. So clearly, I feel bad for the nation. I feel bad for the people of Zambia because next year we have elections, and if we make the mistake that we made in 2021 to bring back UPND, it is another 4 years of suffering. It is another 4 years of load shedding. It is another 4 years of failure to create jobs, another 4 years of failure to create business. But when we start going towards 2031, then you will see electricity being provided, you know, in the compounds. So it's up to you, the Zambian people. You can maintain UPND if you want to suffer for another 4 years, or you go for the alternative, which is a group of people that are concerned with the development of this country. A group of people which will apply not 1 trillion kwacha, but less than 1 trillion, and yet you'll be able to see the airports. You know, less than 1 trillion in 10 years, and yet you'll be able to see the decongestion project here in Lusaka. Here in Lusaka, you'll be able to see roads in Minwood. If you go to Chingola, you'll see roads. You see all of this infrastructure in less than 1 trillion. But if we fail to see what we ought to see, we may bring back a government that will spend 1 trillion and only talk about CDF. And we are in big problems. Let me end at wishing the Zambian people all the best as we march towards the coming elections. I think that we have an opportunity to redeem ourselves. We have an opportunity to take out a government which is unpatriotic, and yet its leaders try to teach others patriotism, including chiefs. I wish to submit.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Gafoya. Yes, like as has earlier been indicated by my colleagues, we want to look at some of the expectations from tomorrow's budget presentation. On behalf of parliamentarians under Tonse, I acknowledge the presence of Honorable Mtoto Gafoya, who is a member of the Council of Leaders under Tonse and a member of Parliament for Lunte. Honorable Kabasoka Mpampi, Member of Parliament for Mwansavombwe in Wapula. And of course, our moderator, who is Honorable Mulenga Fube, a Member of Parliament for Chilubi, a member of parliament with a lot of passion, for agriculture. I'm sure many of us saw him providing alternative policies to the agriculture sector during the presidential debate. And as a matter of fact, the Minister of Agriculture, Honorable Mutolo, managed to respond. Honorable Fowe, I want to commend you for your efforts. It was out of Honorable Fowe's debate and efforts that they have now scrapped the mandatory 10 bags, from every farmer to be sold to NRFA, to Food Reserve Agency. Honorable Fowe made a presentation on the floor of the House, and the Minister of Agriculture considered that is as it should be. Bafuwe bengala umfali onseli epotuweba abantu abanenso mu buteko nga tafafika okuyo fingi twamba okubeba twambile kale nomba limolimo ichiwemba chitilo omwana ekala lilya abifya so kanshi ifumweni okuti wangu abanenso nomba nabamba okula umfanga mwalanda. When we look at Honorable Kafu, I have in mind, I think 2021, when our friends came into power, a number of statements they made on the floor of the House. They asked the Zambian people to wait for their budget. When the 2022 budget was presented and implemented from January 1st, midway, when we went to our friends in government, they came back and said, wait for the IMF program. When the IMF program was approved, halfway through, they started talking about wait for debt restructuring. So the Zambian people have been made to wait for certain programs under the UPND, but the results have been the same. My colleague, Honorable Kafu, and I are very passionate about the issue of CDF. We've always said CDF is a very good concept. It was meant to be a very good concept, but it was not the panacea of implementation of projects in this government. And our arguments sometimes have not been well understood. Our arguments have been simple. We have simply said CDF is only 2.5% of the budget. And we are saying the impact of this 2.5% of the budget, no matter how much you praise it, is dismal. It's only 2.5%. Honorable Kafuaya, being our chairperson for finance at Parliament, he did some numbers where we had 507 billion under PF and we had close to 900 billion under UPND. But under the UPND, from the 2021 to date, they have only disbursed 16 billion, according to President Hakainde Hichilema when he was on the floor of the House. The component of CDF in this 900 billion is only 19.5 billion. It's only under 20 billion. So there's 850, 860 plus that the Zambians would want to see it working. So when we discuss these figures, people always come back and they talk about Kwenyu. Now, the Zambians must understand and unpackage what Kwenyu really is. Kwenyu is just a way of magnifying small projects and achievements to make them appear big. Yeah, so when you hear somebody say Kwenyu, immediately become suspicious. So Kwenyu is a way of magnifying a small project or some small achievement and make them appear 100 times bigger. So many of our colleagues on the floor of the House have been preaching about how many projects have come out of CDF. Honorable Kafu, I want to take some liberties just to be a bit mathematical, because our friends pride themselves, of being methodical and tactical. Let's take the projects, just one ministry under the PF, under President Edgar Chagwa. Ministry of Home Affairs, under Honorable Stephen Kampiongo and President Lungu, did 5,000 houses for immigration and the police across the country. Let's just take that component, Honorable. Let's distribute the 5,000 houses Let's stop calling them houses. Let's just call them buildings. For the sake of this discussion, let's just call them buildings. We have 5,000 buildings. Let's distribute 5,000 buildings across the country. We will have an average of 500 buildings per province. Then you distribute them up to districts, as it were, okay? Or 5,000 into 116 districts. So you find on average 40-something buildings. Now imagine that this is just one ministry.
Administration block and the command center. We have to build.
Yes, exactly. So we are saying well, an average of 50 buildings per district. So if we got the 5,000 houses under Ministry of Home Affairs and distributed them to districts countrywide, in that case, 500 buildings would translate to about 50 buildings, 40-something buildings per district. Meaning that if you go around the country now, under CDF, you will not even get 50 buildings for the past 4 years per district. I want people to understand that. We're looking at quantum. We're looking at quantums and the impact. So we've just picked one example, 5,000 houses under one ministry, distributed across 116 districts. You'll find over 40 buildings per district. People, they've been saying, Kwenyu, 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 Kwenyu. But you see, we proceeded with other projects under Ministry of Health, okay, Education and many others. So one ministry alone, what happened in Ministry of Home Affairs alone, you know, could rival the development that has happened in 4 years under CDF. And that is the reason why we've been saying we know that CDF is a good concept, but we must pay specific attention to quantums and the impacts. Kazungula Bridge alone was over $200 million. Kazungula Bridge alone, the cost of a Kazungula Bridge is equivalent to CDF for the whole country for 1 year. We are not going to talk about Sioma Bridge yet. We're not talking about the Mongo Kalabo Road and many other roads. So all we are saying is, while CDF is a very good concept, there is need for us to look at quantum and the impact. So 2.5% can only have so much impact on the ground. It doesn't matter how much you want to stretch them. Because the police houses I'm referring to are fully fitted with fittings in each of those houses. Meaning that if those translated to classroom blocks, we've already taken care of desks and everything else that comes with it in these 500 buildings. But if we took an audit now, there are no 5,000 buildings from CDF from 2021. And yet, this only accounted for what one ministry under PF did. What am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is that there is need for the 97% of the national budget to have an impact in people's lives on the ground. We have tried to appeal to Comrade Musokotwane. We can't see what the 800 billion has done. We can see what the 19 billion has done, but not what the 800 billion has done. Yeah. So we want to say this to Comrade Musokotwane, that yes, Kwenyu, but Kwenyu is just a way of magnifying small projects and achievements. All this Kwenyu is within 2.5%. Can we transfer the Kwenyu to the 97%? Then we can see. We want to see in his budget some real investments in the energy sector. There's been a lot of pronouncements regarding investments in the energy sector insofar as solar energy is concerned. I listened to the debate by Honorable Kampampi, where he argued, he talked about baseload power. Basically, when you look at solar and the excitement that has been aroused in the energy sector, solar has limitations. We learned recently that the Chisamba project, which was recently launched, 100 megawatts, beyond 16 hours, beyond 17 hours, generation is actually at zero. Experts have said the generation actually dips to zero. Beyond 16 hours, there's no power that is coming out of these solar plants at Chisamba, at Bangweulu, and many other areas. What does this mean? What this means is that we must pay specific attention to projects that will provide a baseload power, for instance, hydro and coal, thermal power plants. What I have in mind the 240 megawatts at Kalungwishi in Mporokoso and Kawambwa, some prospects of 600 megawatts along the Luapula Basin, 150 megawatts Lufubu, somewhere in Insama, and many other areas that can bring on board close to an extra 1,000 megawatts of power. So, Honorable Msokotwane, our expectations are that in your budget presentation, you will pronounce measures that will be aimed at not only reducing load shedding, and but also to improve the output in the power generation within the hydro and thermal sectors. We also expect that in the fuel subsector, Comrade Msokotwane, you must revise your policies, clean up the corruption in the fuel subsector, so that the cost of fuel can come down. The challenges that you've had using the open access of the pipeline should be resolved once and for all. The corruption that we have seen the past 3 years, where fuel prices have been at a premium, a huge cost to the Zambian people. We expect your ministry to clean up the fuel subsector so that the cost of fuel can go down going forward. So in the energy sector, being the elephant in the room, I think the Zambians are all watching. They expect Comrade Msokotwane to come and tell us a better story than his boss did. President Hakainde Hichilema failed to address the energy sector. There were no solutions that he brought to the fore in the energy sector, both in the electricity subsector and in the fuel subsector. So Comrade Msokotwane, I think upon reflecting on the debates on the floor of the House, where members of Parliament came out openly to say there was no solution, the President did not give any hope to the Zambian people. We expect that as you come to Parliament, you should come with some hope. We move to the mining sector. You remember, honorable members, that Comrade Msokotwane, very early, from the time they took over power, he projected that they were going to increase production of copper to 3 million tons of copper. And to be able to do that, they were to give incentives to the mining sector. So they gave out incentives to the mines, okay, with a view that these mines will improve production up to 3 million metric tons. We were very disappointed with that measure right from the beginning, from 2021. The debates are there. You can get them from Hansard. We wondered why Comrade Msokotwane did not give these mining houses key performance indicators before they qualified for some of the incentives. We wondered why he did not graduate these incentives. He gave them these incentives right from the beginning. We asked him difficult questions. We asked him what he would do if these mining houses combined failed to produce the 3 million metric tons after the Zambian government acts to its detriment of giving the incentives, and then the mines don't produce. He wouldn't answer. Today, the president is projecting that we may go up to 1 million tons. So we are coming from around 880 metric tons. We started at 880 metric tons. When the UPND came into power, production dipped to about 600. So we are now aiming to get to about 1 million metric tons, meaning that in the past 5 years, the improvements, the increase would have only been 200,000 metric tons. So we want to urge the Minister of Finance to immediately revise the target of 3 million metric tons downwards. He should revise it downwards to 1.5 million tons. Because if in the past 5 years, the improvement has been below 300,000 metric tons, it will be a pipe dream to think that in the next 5 years, we will improve production by 2 million tons. So to be realistic, Honorable Msokotwane, start by reducing the expectation. Reduce the target from 3 million metric tons to 1.5. After you reduce this target, you also reinstate the mineral royalty tax back to 6% in next year's budget, and also make it non-deductible. Because what has been proved is that these incentives have not benefited the Zambian people at all. There's been no benefit that we've gotten out of it. In the meantime, it can be argued that the mines have improved their working capital the past 5 years because they paid less mineral royalty tax, and they also paid, there was a reduction in their taxes because the mineral royalty tax was actually deducted against their gross earnings. So going forward, Honorable Msokotwane, we expect that mineral royalty tax will be reinstated at 6% from 3%, and also it will be made non-deductible. We want to make sure that even as President Hakainde Hichilema and Comrade Msokotwane come round to tell us the good stories about investments in the mining sector, these investments should not only benefit the few people that interact with captains of these industries. What we have seen is that the real benefit can only be seen with the people that interface with these people and not the Zambian people. So the first thing that we want Comrade Msokotwane to do, the mining sector this time around should benefit Zambia and the Zambians. Comrade Msokotwane, the mining sector incentives and policies in the mining sector should go to the Zambians. We want the Zambians to benefit, and we will tell you how. Number one, can you please introduce measures that will ensure that all business in the mining sector, 40% of that business will go to the Zambian people. At the moment, the Zambians are participating within 5% or less. Now, these are billions of dollars that are going into these mines. We start by giving them incentives on mineral tax. We make it deductible, and we're not even strict on protecting our local industry, our local entrepreneurs, our local contractors, our mine suppliers. So, Comrade Msokotwane, one of the measures, the policies you must pronounce is that 40% of the business going into Sintel mine, the new mines and all that, 40% must go to the Zambians. We don't want to be told that 3,000 companies participated in supplying to these mines. What we want to be told is that out of $4 billion of business to the mines, $1.6 billion went to the Zambian people. That's what we want to be told. Because you can line up companies supplying stationery, ball pens, paper, bond paper, and so on, and give a report, like the president did, that so many companies supplied towards that mine. That's not what we want to hear. We should speak about figures. So 40% of total business must go to the Zambians. We want Zambians this time to benefit from the so-called improved or increased mining activities. So going forward, whenever you want to give an incentive to the mining sector, there must be some conditions attached. There must be some key performance indicators. For instance, after all the incentives that Comrade Msokotwane gave, recently there were other incentives that were given on the export of concentrates. There was a waiver of taxes on the export of concentrates. And the excuse was that we did not have enough smelting capacity. So then the question begs, if we are planning to improve our production to 3 million tons in the next 5 years, and for the past 5 years, these mines have not even prepared smelters to tackle production which is under 1 million tons. What are we doing? Why did we give these incentives? Why did we give them these incentives? Because it's clear that they're not investing. They should have been investing in their smelting capacity. The increase in production has been under 300,000 metric tons, but we're failing to handle that production, and we expect to handle 3 times more in terms of production. So please, as you give these incentives, Comrade Msokotwane, can we see that the government is being very objective, and that the few individuals who are meant to negotiate for and on behalf of the Zambian people are not getting incentives to secure a bad deal or a raw deal for the country. So I think that in the mining sector, those are our minimum expectations, and if the local content is revised to 40%, the mineral tax is reinstated to 6% and made non-deductible, and we revise the target from 3 million tons to 1.5 million tons, I think we'll be happy. We'll have a good starting point going forward. The next one is under the agricultural sector. Like we said before, we expect Comrade Msokotwane tomorrow to come up with pronouncements and budgets for the following farming blocks. Luena farming blocks in Kawamba in Wapula, Shikabeta in Rufunza, Lusaka province, Kalumwange in Kaoma, Western province, Kalungwishi in Mporokoso, Northern province, Nansanga in Serenje, Central province, Luswishi in Lufuanyama, Copper Belt province, is this Chikumbiro, Lundazi in Eastern province, Mansha in Chuangandu, Muchinga province, Musokotwane in Kazungula, Southern province, and Mshindamo in Mshindamo, Northwestern province. This is very important. Investments in farming blocks is very important. We know that the agricultural sector employs up to 70% generally. So, if Comrade Msokotwane had stuck to his budgets right from 2021, he had made pronouncements to do with investments in the farming blocks. 4 years down the line, nothing has happened. These farming blocks have the potential of employing up to 100,000 people put together, 100,000 people put together, just in the developmental stage. And as the actual farming and value addition starts, the numbers could even go up. So if indeed the UPND government, if the UPND government's intention is to reduce unemployment or increase employment numbers of youths, the first thing they must prioritize is development of these farming blocks. So we appeal to you, Comrade Msokotwane, look at the 10 farming blocks right across the country. So the advantages of developing these farming blocks, number one, we're going to achieve food security. Once we achieve food security using these farming blocks, we can liberate and allow small-scale farmers to be able to secure their own markets, including across the borders, where they can get more, for their maize and so on and so forth. Whilst we keep the local prices low, the farmers will be at liberty to export their produce if they so wish, because the 10 farming blocks can certainly secure food security for us. There is an advantage in ensuring that we create employment through these farming blocks. We will improve household income. Comrade Msokotwane, it's very important that household income is actually improved, because it also impacts some of the achievements you may have scored in other sectors, which have been squandered because of low household income. Let's look at free education, for instance, in relation to agriculture. Free education should not be discussed in isolation. What free education did, it actually just came in to help those parents who were unable to pay for their children's school. If we look at the fees that they were failing to pay, they were failing to pay fees between 200 and 500 kwacha. So these families now are supposed to be celebrating free education. But if you look at, for instance, the cost of commodities, let's look at the cost of mealie meal. How much was a bag of mealie meal at the time that school fees were 200 kwacha? A bag of mealie meal was at 130 kwacha. So the parents could not pay this 200, and at that time the mealie meal was at 130 kwacha. Today, mealie meal is at 350, meaning that the 200 kwacha, which families were saving because of free education, is squandered through high food prices. So as we talk about the achievements of free education, we must also look at the wallet, the general household income, and what impact the current food prices have had on household income. So even as we celebrate free education, the impact really in households is so bad. People are actually paying more now to remain alive than they did when they were paying for school fees. So we appreciate the free education policy, but let's also look at the farming block so that we can create employment and improve household income going forward. Comrade Msokotwane. I'll come to infrastructure. We have a number of expectations to do with infrastructure. 8 years ago, the PF government under President Edgar Chagwa procured over 200 bridges. These were custom-made bridges called acro bridges. There was a survey across the country where engineers went and took measurements on major crossings, river crossings across the country. And bridges were manufactured according to those measurements. Now, these bridges remain in warehouses today because there isn't enough money for civil and concrete structures where these particular bridges are laid. So, Comrade Musokotwane, we expect you to provide for the installation of acro bridges. Those bridges have been there for the past 8 years. The provisions under CDF are not enough because on an average crossing, the concrete structures and civil works would cost between 5 and 8 million kwacha. So it's very difficult if from community projects you have 16 million kwacha to take away 8 million kwacha to assign to the bridges. It's been very difficult to be able to do that. So under infrastructure, these government already spent money on these bridges. Please, Comrade Musokotwane, put some provisions for acro bridges so that our people can be served in various areas where these bridges are needed. Number two, we expect Comrade Musokotwane to put provisions for key roads. I have in mind Mpika Kasama Road. That is a road that is connecting two provinces, Muchinga Province and Northern Province. The road is in a deplorable state. We also have Mporokoso Kawamba Road on the other side, connecting Luapula Province to Northern Province. I have in mind in Lunte Zakaria Chanda Road. I have in mind Nseluka Kayambi, Nsombo Chava Chilubi Road, among others. So please, Comrade Musokotwane, you should remember that these are roads, these were active contracts when you came into power. There were contractors on these roads already working. The contracts were cancelled alongside other contracts, road contracts like Monzeniko and Mwinilunga Solwezi and many others. Other projects have since started nearing completion, but there's been no activity on these other roads that I've mentioned. So please make provisions to ensure that roads in these other areas are also looked at. This, as a matter of fact, would go with yesterday's theme when the president was meeting the chiefs. The president talked about unity, for development, as it were. So when you looked at the composition, there were chiefs from right across the country. So within that meeting, I can only imagine that as the chiefs were discussing, others were very happy and they spoke very well about the developments in their chiefdoms, whilst others kept on complaining about the road infrastructure. So Comrade Musokotwane, please look at what the president said to the chiefs yesterday and ensure that you implement infrastructure projects right across the country equally. There were a lot of statements made in that meeting by ministers who appeared before the chiefs that there was no segregation in the manner that projects were being implemented. I don't agree with those ministers who spoke that way. And all I can do for now is to appeal that please, since a commitment was made in front of the chiefs, can you ensure that roads in Wapula, like the Tuta Road from Serenje Tuta Road is also worked on. Can we ensure that the Samfia into Mansa Road is also worked on? Can we ensure that Mpika Kasama is worked on? And many of these other roads that have not been worked on. So we can't always be assuring chiefs and traditional leaders about equality in terms of the distribution of projects. When the actual implementation is assessed, we find a different story. So I don't agree with the statements that were made the time the president was meeting the chiefs. The truth of the matter is that there are projects in some areas that are being implemented and other areas are not receiving similar attention. I want to make an appeal to Comrade Musokotwane that ensure that tomorrow, even the road that goes to Kaputa, where Her Honor the Vice President comes from, the number 2 in this land, should be looked at. It can't take 4 years to do a road to Kaputa. Certain biases should be rather obvious. I mean, you must be biased. Some biases are obvious. Nobody can complain. You say, no, we're doing this road because the Vice President comes from there. Yeah. But the road to where the Vice President comes from is not done.
Like the Monzeniko.
Yes. I mean, we have no issue with Monzeniko Road because His Excellency the President comes from there, it goes through Wengwa. It's a given. We also expect that Mporokoso and Sama Kaputa should be done because the vice president also comes from there. Yeah. I mean, these are two very important people in our country, the president and the vice president. We'll have no issue. We had an issue on Abogafwaya on the price. The price of the Monzeniko road. The cost was 940 million kwacha for 70 kilometers of road. This was a road which was at 370 million under the PF. It's 3 times more under the UPND. We had an issue on the cost, but not on the principle. Not on the principle. It would have been very embarrassing, to have no road or to have a dilapidated road leading to the village where the president comes from. No, I wouldn't support that.
So it should come all the way to the Great North Road, because they've jumped some.
Yes, of course. Comrade Milupi and his engineers, they started the road 2 kilometers away from the road. We don't know what the motive was, but we want to liberate them. To say, just bring it all the way up to the road, because all the Zambians know that road is being worked on. It doesn't mean you should start it 2 kilometers away so that people think there's nothing going on. No, let it come all the way from where it starts from. We know about that road. Yeah. So we are talking about unity in development, and we're very passionate about that. The president spoke about it, but we don't want these to just end in words. It must actually be implemented. We demonstrated this under the PF. Under the PF, we can authoritatively say Chingola Solwezi Road was a very expensive road. It was not in the PF stronghold. The Kazungula Bridge is not in the PF stronghold. The Mongo Kalabo Road is not in a PF stronghold. The Sioma Bridge is not in the PF stronghold. What are we talking about? We're talking about equality in the distribution of developmental projects. The bottom road is not in the PF stronghold. The Tanpak Mazabuka Road is not in the PF stronghold. And yet, these projects were executed with diligence and excellence, because those parts of the country are also part of Zambia. So President ECL, may so rest in peace. If he was alive, he could say, I was a president for all Zambians and I distributed development right across the country. I introduced unity in the country through development, because he demonstrated it, not through words. He rarely spoke. He mainly acted. Today, President Lungu is no more, but we can recount some of these projects. So today, Comrade Msogotwane and Comrade Milupi, I want to call upon you. We want to see equitable distribution of projects right across the country. We will not stop talking. We can't stop talking, because the chiefs you're talking to yesterday cannot talk for themselves many a time. They speak through us. And the message coming from those chiefs is that, can we see the Mporokoso Kawamba Road worked on? Can we see the Mporokoso Nsama Kaputa Road worked on? Can we see the Nsombo Chava Chilubi Road worked on? Can we see the Lunte Zakaria Chanda Road worked on? Can we see the Nseluka Kayambi Road worked on? Can we see the Serenje Tuta Road worked on? That's what the chiefs are saying. So we should not talk about equitable distribution of development. We should show that there's an equitable distribution of projects. Mere pronouncement in front of chiefs is not enough, Mr. President. Comrade Msogotwane, you have a chance. You have an opportunity. This is your last budget in the mandate that you are given. I'm sure you can do something. You can do something to redeem the image that projects are only going to some parts of the country and not the other parts of the country. So I thought that it was very important to combine what the president talked about yesterday and what is happening on the ground. So I think, Comrade Kafwaya, I agree with you that when you look at the CDF is important, but its contribution to the development is dismal, because it's only 2% of the budget in any case. We would have expected more. If I had a way, I would have said, since the UPND only have CDF, they want all the projects to go through 200 million, so that it's at least at 15%. The Accra bridges we're talking about can be worked on. Some of these roads can be worked on. The president, lastly, I just wanted to make a point. There's something the president said yesterday that I thought I should respond to. The president said for the first time, districts right across the country are seeing graders for the first time. No. I think that statement was inaccurate. As I speak to you, by 2020, when I was campaigning in Chilubi, I found graders in Chilubi. He's my witness.
Yes.
And
the tipper.
In 2020.
Which was bought in 1.6.
Yeah, Chilubi had a grader, Chilubi had a tipper. In 2018, Lunte already had a grader. Luwingu had a grader, tipper plus low bed. Nsama had a grader, roller and tipper. Kasama had graders. So, Your Excellency, it's not true that people are only seeing graders now through CDF, the enhanced CDF. Most of the districts across the country already had this equipment. Even in some parts of the country, like Southern Province, I know that some MPs actually got into trouble because they were given money to buy equipment. They imported equipment from a friend of theirs who never supplied that equipment. So it's not that at the time there was no equipment that could be introduced in these districts. All the districts in Northern Province when I was minister had graders. You had graders, everybody had graders. So when I heard the president say now a child in some village knows what a grader is, no, Your Excellency, those children knew those graders 10 years ago because the graders were there. Yeah, so the issue there has been on implementation of these projects. There was need to look at, to assess what the limitations were. Chilubi, with all those graders, it was very difficult to implement road construction. That equipment is good for road maintenance. We needed to acquire more equipment so that you can actively and properly construct these roads in these particular areas. So there may be need. If they think CDF is the only answer, then push it to 200 million. Now, if
Chilubi didn't only have a grader, it had also a dredger for the
even dredgers. If 36 million, for the information of the president, that 36 million is not funded uniformly. It's not funded uniformly, no. Sometimes we interact with colleagues, members of parliament, who are boasting about CDF being funded. We call our councils, CDF has not been funded. So, Your Excellency, it's not true that CDF is funded on the same day. It's not true. We know this because we have friends who are MPs. Okay? And also, Your Excellency, it's also not true that during the PF, some councils were funded while others were not funded. There was a ministerial statement by the Minister of Finance, the current Minister of Finance, Tumbekom Sokotwane. He was asked a question as to whether there were any councils that were not funded CDF up to the time they took over. As at the time they took over government, all the councils across the country were funded equally, in equal amounts. They could have been funded at different amounts due to certain constraints. But at the end of the day, all the councils were funded. And as a matter of fact, he was a fellow minister. What President Lungu did, whenever there wasn't enough money, the ministers, constituencies where the ministers were coming from, were funded last. The priority went to backbenchers, both from the right and the left. It's only the ministers that were funded last. So there was no discrimination in the manner that CDF was given. I thought I should react to this. I've heard these statements made many times over. There was no discrimination. If anything, backbenchers, including those from the opposition at the time, the UPND, they got their constituencies, the CDF funded before my CDF was funded, before his CDF was funded. So to clear the air, there was no constituency that remained without being given CDF. Comrade Msokotwane himself confirmed that. I thought we could clear that. And secondly, currently, maybe the president was referring to what's happening currently. Currently, we have distortions in the funding. Some receive earlier than others. That's the situation as it stands. And the overall picture is that in many cases, we get to December without getting a full disbursement of CDF for that particular year. So it's not as rosy as it's meant to look on the outside. There are a lot of problems to do with CDF, and Zambians must know the truth. Lunte has never gotten a full disbursement of CDF from the time that it started. Yeah, but when the president and the ministers are there, they say, no, it's for the first time we're giving it equally. No. It was very important that we clear the air. I think.
Thank you so much. I think I would like to appreciate those who have spoke before me. And Valandati, except that you see, Honorable Mundubile also refers to me as a diesel engine that only gets jacked up when
Along the way.
Yes, and I think when you look at that, I need to also leverage on what my seniors have said. They are my seniors in everything. They got to parliament area, they have been ministers, they are also seniors in terms of party ranking. And I also recognize my good friend, Kampampi, who is always loyal to speaking for the people. Even when he's silent, he has spoken through those that have spoken. I want to start with the question of unity. As the president espoused, I want to amplify and add on what my seniors have said. The question of unity starts from our constitutional law as MPs, where we are actually required to distribute these resources equitably by the Constitution, according to Article 62, when we are approving budget and many other factors come in. But President Warren under party unity, and there is this notion that he has planted in his MPs. I have seen them argue on the floor of Parliament that they were deprived, they were discriminated, and the like. If there was a Karindawalo hospital in the eastern, there was a request Muntanga hospital in the southern. And these are different posts. When we look at the number of clinics, let me take the prefabs, the 650 prefabs. Southern province had 99. Those are government records.
Yes.
It was the highest.
Yes.
By the time PF was leaving power, 69 of them were constructed. When you look at the number 69, that's 69 was for Northern Province as total. 69 was for Eastern Province as total. The number of prefabs that was constructed in Eastern Province, which is 69 total as 100%, is equivalent to the number which was constructed, which is even not even 100%, which remained. Even those that remained in Southern Province, they have not been constructed because if I'm lying, I think the Minister of Health can confirm. When it comes to Northern Province, only 5 of those prefabs were not constructed. About 64 of them were constructed, and 4 of those are in my district. And one, I think, should have been Netherlands or somewhere. And what caused that was the coronavirus. That's when we stopped, because the prefab materials were supposed to be exported in the country. And many, look at the number of, prefabs that were constructed in the Northwestern. They beat the number in Northern Province. They beat the number in many of these. When we go to mini hospitals, it's a different scenario. When you are entering Western, where they claim to have a stronghold, I am saying they claim because no one wants the people, you just go into Kenyama, which is part of, is it Kauma? Though it's now a different word. There's a prefab there. When you're just entering on the mouth of Western province, and many other factors, one of the most expensive roads was done in that particular area. Go to Northwestern, who electrified 7 districts in Northwestern, because they want to portray a picture that PF never did anything to where they were not getting. Who electrified 7 districts in Northwestern? Let's come to the distribution of 115 hospitals. Where are they? Throughout the country. You find that there are these. Let's talk about airports. There's Mwanga Nkumbra Airport, another on the Copper Belt and the like. Northern Province was not even finished, and so forth, and the like. When it was even at is it 90% were...
I left at 85.
Yes. Now, looking at this, I think I just want to add on the infrastructures in terms of the unity. We are talking about unity linked to development. We want Cassava Bay to be part of the budget. The Cassava Bay, what? Because it's a base for our tourism. Many other things, I think, have been tackled by my seniors. I just wanted to underscore that this notion, this language of saying people were discriminated. It's very toxic, and we have gotten tired of it. We are free to produce from government records of where the dams that we are doing, where they've been done in Eastern Province where the president was coming. No, they were distributed throughout the country. The towers that Honorable Kafwa talked about, the roads. The president could get 269 votes in Dundumwezi, but he would take electricity and the road there. The past president, the late president. So let us be fair in the way we are trying to cave some of these notions, which are very toxic and divisive. If the president wants to talk about development, let him not allow his members of parliament to taunt others about discrimination, which was not even there. And I think that should be a starting point. Bringing chiefs in one room does not connote unity. What connotes unity is how you are using the 97% of the rest of the budget. Brilliant. That is where unity starts from. If we can only benefit, and in any case, when you say, have you seen, you know, CDF is all over. CDF was all over. From the time it was created in 1995, it has been all over. There's no consequence that has been discriminated. And even these things, like, for the first time, this and that. I think they talked about the yellow machines. I wouldn't like to emphasize. I want to come to the issue of agriculture. We have a president and this team that are thinking monocrop. Agriculture, we want to take matava. Agriculture is crop mix plus livestock. That is agriculture. I know that we have been talking about boss mwachilaba kunokulaba. Ilimulela ndapama farming blocks. Tuko na ulo rupianga ila 300 million watu ele kulia. $300 million. Where the Minister of Agriculture even confessed that it was a waste. So, all to run about farming blocks. To reform Sokotwane, put in measures that are supposed to monitor the success of this farming blocks.
They can actually get $80 million,
yes,
which was sent to China by accident.
Yes.
And put it into farming.
Balanda wa bossa tumafunya kalaka $80 million. Tatu reform fyako na ula ngafema wana uide ya 300 million kulia. Tualishibe kwa libaba nenu washima farm. That's why you took it there. But how it has been, if since corruption is corruption, $300 million ya farming block. You know, start to live what Bali become muli mulungushi $12 million dollars. Mukutari fabisha mama machines no replace absolute machines. And they have talked about 25,000 farmers to be put on outgrower scheme. But why are they ordering texture? Textile, yes. So, yalama container about 60 something. To which time investigate kale. Much of that is and textile. It's not machinery, it's not anything in textile. Meaning, we are killing the cotton industry. And if that is what we mean, that is just an electioneering factor where we have to nanika. We have killed soybeans. We know that the price, cooking oil, na fimbi. We have killed groundnut production. We have killed soybeans production. Throughout my fingers to lay later, Teto Chalo Chifide produce this time. Not too full. We are 22, almost 22 million. We know that these boys and girls who were passing, this none which they thought that they could doctor the 2022 census, which backfired. They did not pick settlement, meaning that the 20 million that we are talking about could even be 23 million. Not too full, meaning that more farmers are there. For instance, the best that was captured even as far as my PF time is 3 million. And the PF had an interest with the manifesto 2021-2026 to increase that number so that it's broadened, because the peasant farmers, those that are referred to as small-scale farmers, are the ones that contribute to the food security. Because these other commercial farmers, They make money for seed. The seed, they also make money for feed. That is where it goes. But the people that feed the nation are small-scale farmers. They are still at 1,024,000. Of course, this time around, they were, according to the report, the 8th National Development Plan report, they were 1,021,000. When they just planned for 1,001,000. But 1,021,000, which was haphazard, and they claimed the number 20,000 was an increment. But let's look at this. We have got a cooperative model operating on this side. Then we have got an e-voucher model operating on the other side. The e-voucher model encourages individualistic approach to farming. The cooperative model encourages group approach to farming. But mulefwaya, abantu bapakela pa cooperative, if you are e-voucher, but wale mpaka as individuals, musevanya. Nichi pante. Chimfulunganya. Meaning, there is something that we are not understanding here. It's either you want to get rid of FISIP in an indirect way, because you know that the PF tried that mode, and they reverted back to reconfining the e-voucher to drought-prone areas and allowing the FISIP to areas that had got average rainfall of more than 1,000 millimeter per annum, which is good planning. We know that these things that we are doing are reactionary policies. They are not even anchored anywhere. They are not anchored on a legal framework as well as the policy framework. Pama minerals. Pama minerals, I think you find that there was a geophysical survey that was being undertaken. But that geophysical survey, data would go to outside the nation. The Swiss companies that we know that they are supposed to surrender that under the NANCAN. We also want to ask government, what is the role of Tony Blair in that particular arrangement? And many other prayers in that particular arrangement. We also want to ask government, when we talk about the geophysical what? Let us not even say it's the first time in the history of Zambia. What has the mineral book been doing at the Minister of Mines? That blue, brown in the bossine. Book brown. It has been there from 1987 throughout the years. So nishkaunda takwe temano. Pakti the lochise chivi at first time in the history. So how did Kaunda and other people, even the MMD, gather that data to put in the mineral book to know that actually Mpolokoso has got minerals, among them iron and many other, including Chiruvi. Those things are there. And it's not for the first time. So, when are they going to publicize the mineral book? Bossy, Naturafu Anombeko, where the 6% comes in, we have had a problem. That 6% has been targeting profitability as opposed to production. The 3%, even the 3%. We want this time around Vamsokotwane to take production based. And they should put in measures where these mines, whom we have no control, should not under-declare at production level. Because things can be manipulated at profitability level because ungamatwala kundanda metal exchange kuri FHT ngana ifumana nikani finished product mwaitwala, it is a different thing. And the boss bachalanda pari value addition. Na isa kuma designo license ya mule pela kwati nima kantanga na yuwa. The auditor report talks about creating trade centers, 4 of them. You created 0 trade center. You failed 1 refinery for the gold, which was included in our 8th National Development Plan. You created 0. Then you want to give these young people, expose them to risk, because they don't know how they are going to trade the same gold. It's not structured, because you have made Zamgold a vehicle that the PF made as an aggregator. It's just an aggregator. And the PF made Zamgold to control and bring sanity in the gold mining sector, subsector, so to speak. But what we are seeing today is an issue of where people want to create confusion so that the monies from our minerals can get to private pockets. The PF created the vehicle, Zamgood. It has been trivialized. It is hand high DC. The PF declared some gold as part of the reserve at Bank of Zambia. How much gold have you declared as part of the reserve ever since you came for 4 years? Because that vehicle was helping to facilitate that. I want also to talk about Shujrite and cobalt. You find that when we are looking at these minerals, today I'm IMF, probably 188 million kwacha with a begging bowl. Twalikwete Shujrite kuja, bale gada, aba kapokola aba abuteko, eba le gada. Twashira umfafi amari potati, Shujrite has depleted. Uwa ibile nani? Ukubula ko pali cho, muli Shujrite mwali ko mulandu, ulobale extend estimate pali $30 million. If you share muli tipa, naponga ni muma tipa. Twasa umfatu wa ipsha parliament, walanda tao na abase shena abatuala muli container. Emo babikire. Kwa tishiba boss muli ba lawyer, exhibit ila chinje mino sana ukonka lemo babikire. So exhibit nga chinje mino ni shimwashi wakwati muli ufufu ntungu. Now, that Shujrite has disappeared and the story has died. And we know people have benefited. Cobalt, we were told that it's a byproduct of copper. But we want, as the mineral royalty arrangement, should not just target copper. We know copper is contributing between 69 to 71% of our export as traditional export. But therefore, iliba msokotwane wale samwe bansamushi banani kan bakafwaya. Kapchofa mwinga panga ka framework. Emo wala bika go jile langishati ama mineral road towards the nani kane yafu mnikri god ni. Then cobalt since yalichila ko mtengo pali copper pa international level. Therefore na ile chita reflect. Ni copper finga tulenda ndapo walo yo chizia. Yo tulanda po. We don't talk about other minerals. Tatwa kwata. Andinga twali kwata. Dila bala chita fine yama minerals ya. Bala chita separate think. Where do other minerals go? Yambia na helicopter na nguyane ndeke nshi olo yambia pitania na matraki. So na trafa shokola ndakupano na tupama mineral royalties na pena tu achitako capture ka nani. Mukulekelesha boss nsuminisheni ko nandi kofi pama civil servants. Ama civil servants. Ninchetekela ba mtoto kafwaya na ba mundubile ifoka poka fyamu tonse na MPF na babikira malati mbiba civil servant bala yako bwino kali ba president bali ndakona bena pama chiefs. We are not opposed in taking after the chiefs. We have looked after the chiefs before. We bought vehicles and we gave them different incentives. Actually ni foto alangira tema chiefs bachindame twalambalo kubapela kangwe kalya ako na kena ka shirewa walira mwingiremo. We are the ones and we have demonstrated a pedigree. Therefore we are on moral high ground to talk about the chiefs. Twalibapela mavigo ama Hilux yalia tatulamona pa Hilux mwatantika ngama nani inana mwena tiliba chifu baisa wala senda Hilux kwati ma ambulance fina mwatantika tatwaya mwene tatwaya mwene twalefa mwatantika dibale saba chifu mule demanda mfumu mwesha mushiri ngamwa isa muli umusango kuisoro tababwela ko fele minwe yo ngamwa ira no tuma Hilux kuri lungu bale ya na Hilux. So twale mona tifya chitikani fya kuti dila tulala ndapali ba chifu ba civil servant na wena na babikira amala muri budget mwali bala European mwali kanya debt swap twali kwatire formula fwebene twali shibati government aba pala bazana ko na ndema institutions bali kwatama ground rates bala lipira menshi bala lipira malite exchange twali fokuchita na twali kwatira na plan na mulila nani kane twabikire twali konkere nefunde muitatere industrial laborers shani ya relations ati twali bikiremo imamo asabo mcha section 72 ukukanya debt swap twali bofika section efukara twali bikiremo debt swap echo tulelo mbako pa civil servant mwema civil servant mungu ufikishe sana hapa ifitulala ndapo tefe twafirwanga ba PF ela twashile twali mipele increment mwalimbira no kwimbati eba umyaba efye munefano kuwerera station tuwekerepo ichechera te kwebati ni It's even a secret. That is known. We have looked after the civil servants better than UPND. Kwali ukubomsha equity formula, ukubapela, almost to, some of them were getting 100% increment. From that time, tapawa wapela po 100% increment. So, tulefwa ya mli budget wa msokotwani wale bika mairo. Civil servant na ena, akawepa position. Ya kweba ati, dilale maparia afiri okuseka. Batita tulelanda pama, si ilia kuchitafia election ya dini. Na tuishiva, in last budget, ifo na tuishiva nga tuwasaisa. Tukesa senda ine mana, palapene tuwa shiride tuwa chibumbuntikile wino. Muli manifesto ya 2021-2026. Tukapela wino ama civil servants because we know where to touch. And we know where the resources are. I know, chimbia chendefo kulanda ko boss pedestrian ni debt restructuring, debt na ina babi kafia kwa tina mo, ningu mfaba mwalera nda tofu trepitra malaiti niba PF wa Kongo. Tamule Kongola, ninshi mulete la borrowing plan ku parliament. Nga tamule Kongola. Nechichi ne ninshi watika konkanyapo. Batacho ndefo okusoka. Chakwe bati, bamusokotwani tuwa papata. Let us not have, miyeta shanyala, ma supplementary budget. Ali 40, mwaka umo. Like mwaka tu akwete anga ya 3. In 1 year. That does not represent good planning. Because a budget is planned out of the 8th National Development Plan, supported by the public accounts. Public, il ne sait pas le pire ou à Charles Frofilo. Il est actif.
Public Finance Management.
Public Finance Management active. Na fimbi ama instrument ya sasa na constitution ya iposam. So that to fire this time ngamwabika budget. That to fire ama supplementary budget. Esa mkuchila pali 20%. Filatwa mwene. Where the supplementary budget is almost ngamwabika pamo. Yale mafe budget ya yako palo kona yena. That is not financial discipline. It does not show fiscal fitness. So, when you make a budget, to a papa taba msokotwane pituru keni mufpende wino. Na tuna kakula wula, ujonsa fya papa na supplementary budget, mwalanda ya drought tamuli fya drought. Mwalanda ya kutina tamuli fya kuti. Mkwa watila ti kutu wapilo wali kumuto. Kali tuamuli fya mfuta tupuwa kusala. Pali inonjita mkwa yetu na landa fya na ti tuwapele wapene. Na tote la fya bakala mbaba chivalila kwa wachini eba mkoshapo nokuti ni ngemi ya kwa kanwa muli umusangu kaina mshua limoni mwa dadi ngani wa bouncer kola wana wemwa na wamba fya kutendeka bantu chitendeke ichalenga nivala bachi baba solwe ero mkwai tuleisala tulechetekero kwebati kalaka 1 trillion mule chitenani muka kachiteta bileti wino fya mwabombele muli 1 trillion pali 5 years pantu ili tuleisa 2026 tukasami pusha wino If you have a pia, makamaka 97% of our budget. Yale ya kui. Pantu 2% ya turanda fechera mshiku. Iya CDF. Iyi shinga seva ne misebo wino. Muma areas aya palanga la bachira randapo. Tuatotra sana pa consuming shoktera chi ningaposa kwa mashu. Mule njere la kwene chai chive tsungu sonda sankanye chive mbane tsungu.
Order. Thank you.
So, kama chifu na msongi ya mviko